my reflections and some of my thoughts. And of course, Allah knows best. And over the past few years, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic began ravaging through our communities, one thought has dominated my mind. And this thought is one of hopelessness and one of despair. To me, it often seems like we'll never emerge from the depths of oppression, of violence, of inequality, of hunger, of joblessness, of gender-based violence, and of poverty. It often seems like the structures of society that maintains all this ugliness is rooted too deep into the earth, never to be dismantled. Right now, and at this moment, it's clear that as humanity, we're at a crossroads. What we do over the next few years will determine and will define our future and our survival. The American philosopher Noam Chomsky, when analyzing this global crisis that we are in, said that we are approaching the most dangerous point in human history. The war in Ukraine has laid bare the violence of imperialism that's taking us closer to the possibility of nuclear war. The failures of capitalism has given rise to the worst kind of right-wing populism in India, Brazil, USA, UK, and other parts of Europe. Our insistence on consuming everything that we can consume, on expanding our empires and making profit above everything, is taking us closer to a climate catastrophe, where we are likely to see more food insecurity, more food scarcity, increased flooding, unbearable heat, mass migration, and ultimately the outright collapse of society. Of course, in South Africa, the most unequal country in the world, we have been watching this crisis unfold in real time. And there's no better way to understand this crisis than by recalling the Marikana massacre, especially since this week marks exactly 10 years since then. 10 years ago in Marikana, 34 mine workers were massacred for simply demanding dignified lives. The Marikana massacre exposed the deep cracks in post-apartheid South Africa. It showed us the extent to which capital, represented by big business, maintains a system that exploits and reproduces cheap black labor. It exposed a corrupted ANC government that's beholden to big business. It showed us the violence of the state, which makes decisions in the interest of profit rather than people. It forced us to confront our own complacency, and it forced us to confront our failures to reimagine. We must never forget Marikana. We must embody the spirit of the 34 mine workers. May Allah be pleased with them who were murdered. 10 years later, the crisis in this country is plainly worse. Right now, 80% of this country's wealth is owned by 10% of the population, most of whom are white. Almost 50% of people are unemployed in this country, and 3 in 4 young people don't have a job and have no hope of getting a job. 11% of people in this country go to bed hungry every night. On top of that, the recent state capture inquiry exposed the extent to which money is used to influence our state in favor of corrupt private interests. Last year in July, mass riots across the country, mostly in KZN and Gauteng, forced us to confront the unviability of our society. But in all of this, we do find hope. We find hope in young people who have taken to the streets in Sri Lanka, Chile, Brazil, and the UK, demanding a more just world. We find hope in the mothers, the fathers, and the young people of Palestine who continue to resist the last stand of settler colonialism. We find hope in the widows of Marikana, who after 10 years continue to demand justice on behalf of their slain husbands. Of course, we find hope in students of this very campus who 7 years ago led one of the most important movements in this country, demanding that we put our unviable society on trial. And most importantly, we find hope in our team. In the Quran, Allah guarantees victory over all these oppressive systems. In verse 5 and 6 of Surah Al-Qasas, Allah, the Lord of compassionate justice, declares, and we wish to be gracious to those who are oppressed in the earth by making them leaders and inheritors of it, and establish them in the land, and show Pharaoh and his minister Haman and the soldiers that which they feared most. In this verse, and elsewhere in the Quran, Allah uses the Arabic term mustad'afun, which is literally translated as those who were oppressed. Not those who are oppressed, those who were oppressed. It recognizes that poor people, for example, are not poor without agency. Poverty happens because of entrenched systems, not because of individual failures. Poor people were forced into poverty, and the marginalized were pushed to the margins. In this verse, Allah shows His unambiguous favor for the mustad'afun, for those who are oppressed, and guarantees victories over oppressive systems. Allah further guarantees that all these systems of oppression will be destroyed. Allah shows us that despite the overwhelming structural struggles we are faced with, despite the hopelessness, despite the despair, we will win. But of course, hope is not enough. The 10th century Islamic scholar, Ibn Hazm, may Allah be pleased with him, wrote, if a man dies in a community because of poverty, the entire community is guilty of contributing to his death and should pay blood money for his family. This is a powerful statement. Ibn Hazm equates not acting in the face of poverty to murder. Islam, therefore, calls for a collective humanity. If someone else is suffering, you are suffering. For Muslims, as long as poverty exists, we should be in a constant state of anxiety, and we should act on that anxiety. The liberation of the self is intrinsically linked to the liberation of the other. In verse 135 from Surah 4, Allah the Most High proclaims, O you who have attained to faith, be ever steadfast in upholding justice, bearing witness to the truth for the sake of Allah, even though it be against your own selves, or your parents and kin, whether the person concerned be rich or poor. Allah's claim takes precedence over the claims of either of them. Do not, then, follow your personal desires, lest you swerve from justice. For if you distort the truth, behold, Allah is indeed aware of all that you do. In this verse, Allah commands us not only to pursue justice, but to audaciously and uncompromisingly defend justice. Audacity is pleasing to Allah if it is done for His sake. At the beginning of the talk, I spoke about this crisis we're in this country and globally. It's a crisis that, if we don't act now, it will lead up to the most dangerous period in human history. And as Muslims, we have no choice but to act. The crisis, of course, is constructed by the global political economic system that defines how the economy works, it defines how we relate to each other, and it's a system that strips us of our humanity by reducing us to consumers. So, therefore, our action must include undermining this oppressive system. And it's young people like yourselves, we need to lead the rest of us towards action. Firstly, as Muslims, we cannot afford to lose hope, despite the crisis we are in. But we need you to take us out of the depths of hopelessness and despair. We need you to reimagine a more just and a more equal future. A world free from oppression and a world that puts the planet and people before profit. We need you to reimagine a more Islamic world. Secondly, history shows us that young people are the best place to lead collective action that will take us towards this more Islamic world. It's young people who experience the crisis worse than anyone else. The students of 2015 at UCT and other campuses gave us a glimpse of the possibilities of what young people like you can achieve. However, the Fees Must Fall and Roads Must Fall movements were not successful in linking their struggles with the struggles of exploited workers beyond campus, with the struggles of mine workers, with young unemployed people living in townships with no hope of economic liberation, with women, with communities living in townships and rural areas, and with other marginalized people in this country, in Palestine, and in the rest of the world. As young Muslims, this is your task. And now is the time. Allahu A'lam, may Allah forgive me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.